Love podcasts hate nonsense. It's the Politics Show podcast.
Why are we clapping when there's only two of us? Oh, there's people clapping behind the scenes.
And the gallery. Hi, Connor.
Hello.
Welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
Well, you might be a permanent feature. Who knows?
Who knows? What could... I'm just laughing because there's like smoke in between.
Shut up.
And I'm trying to pretend there's not.
You've come out kind of like...
I've come out.
No, like,
Ava.
What's it called? Stars in their eyes. Do you remember?
What, because you're a celebrity?
No, because there's the smoke in the air.
Oh.
Do you remember they used to do the smoke and then they'd walk through?
Oh.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
I actually don't.
What do you mean?
I've not seen that.
Yes, you have.
I'm not familiar with whatever that is.
You have, honestly. You definitely only had 3 channels growing up. You definitely saw it.
We did only have 3 view, yeah. Let me not lie. We were not on the Sky programme.
We were very much on our neighbour's Sky. I should probably not put that in.
Yeah, we're just going to pretend that we didn't hear
I'm
that.
lying anyway. I'm joking.
Yeah, exactly.
I love lying. Do you?
Yeah, I always lie.
Okay, so a bit of a gear shift. We're going to talk about assisted dying.
Yeah, we are. Somber.
I think that's probably how you would go in a puff of smoke.
In a puff of smoke, what, by assisted dying?
No! At the end, I can imagine you sort of going as like a...
I'm just going to move on from that.
Do you think you'd be cremated?
Oh gosh, this is a really interesting discussion because I talk about this with my mum all the time. Because when I was younger, my mum, when we talk about death, would be like, "You're being cremated,"
Really?
and I'd be like, "Well, you're not going to get a say in it. I'm going to be going after you, babe." And she'd be like, "The family's getting cremated. End of story." She'd be like, "We're not rotting away in a coffin." And I'd be like, but it just used to really freak me out because the idea of like my body going up in flames, I get that I'm not going to be there to deal with it, but I'm like, I still will be. Do you know what I mean? I've never really quite been able to make peace with it in my head. So I actually don't know what I'm going to do.
I make more peace with that than being in the box.
Yeah, I just have no peace with any of it. I don't know.
But do you know that they just let the Catholics can now be cremated because they weren't allowed to be before?
Which is crazy. Then I think the person that's environmentally friendly in me is like, I don't want to be sat in a coffin, like rotting away, wasting space, like on the earth. I know that sounds really dumb.
Yeah, but then you've also got the emissions if they burn you.
Oh gosh, I just can't win. Just can't do anything.
Have you been to a crematorium?
I have not. Have
Okay.
you?
Yes, was there earlier this year.
Oh.
You are quite taken aback by the smell.
I literally never want to experience that. Ever.
Honestly, my sister was mouthing off at the front of at the start of this funeral. What is that smell? Why does it smell so bad? I'm going, shut up.
Girl.
That is
Take a
someone's
guess
relative.
what that is.
Like, police.
When I see her next, I'm bringing that up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I look, I think I can see why people would want both, either or, sorry. I just find the idea of the flames really scary. Again, even though I'm physically not, going to be there. I physically will be there, sorry, I mentally will not be there. But I feel as though that's more of an almost definitive ending than the coffin.
Well, I'm claustrophobic.
Well,
I get really
Darren.
frightened about people waking up.
Oh God, don't even. Oh my goodness, stop. And because I watched an episode of Ugly Betty the other day where someone did get buried alive in a tomb. So that's like a really recent
This is
thing
what I
for
get
me.
scared about.
No. Oh gosh. Yeah, but then what if you're alive when you get put in the...
But it happened all the time.
Or when?
I don't know.
I don't know. No,
I swear I've read about it happening.
I know it definitely has happened. I think it's
I keep getting... No, do you know what it was? I think I watched like... Oh, what did I watch? Like Pet Sematary.
not Pet Sematary.
What's that like film? What's his name? The guy who does the Shining and all of that.
Oh, Jim Carrey.
No.
I just snorted. Oh,
Okay, anyway.
God.
I feel really comfortable talking about assisted dying. I think that a lot of people don't. It's a very
I agree.
contentious issue. I feel very comfortable with... I find it very natural.
You mean dying or just talking about like... What do you mean?
Talking about death. I
I
feel
do too.
comfortable with it.
I also think it's something we should all be more comfortable with because it's like literally the only unavoidable thing in life is death for all of us.
I wonder if you've got Irish in you.
Yeah.
Have you been to an open casket funeral?
I haven't actually because when there have been ones, I have chosen not to go.
Oh, really?
Because I find it it really does freak me out. Not that death freaks, I'm the same as you, so I can talk about death all day long. And I think that's because, not to get like too heavy too quickly after we've just been joking, but I think we both experienced a fair share of death. And I think once you've been around it a little bit, for some people, it gets a lot harder. For some people, I think it becomes a lot easier. And I think in my case, it's the latter. But there's something about funerals. I will go to them when it's someone I do really, I will go. It's not to say I wouldn't, but they really it doesn't feel like the right ending for me. I know it sounds really silly, but I've always found it really hard to sort of go to this formal, it's like organized fun, you know what I mean? And it's like you go to this thing for this organized goodbye. And to me, that doesn't actually mean anything special because it's
Open
this
bar
group
to me
thing.
does.
Interesting. Okay. What? Because you can physically kind of, I guess, go and say goodbye.
Well, I think that the people who have died, when we've gone to an open bar afterwards, I'm like, this is exactly what they would have wanted. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do. Definitely. Yeah, definitely. And I think part of it is definitely dependent on the person and what they would want. I think people who know me would know the thing I would want is for everyone to go clubbing and like in my name that night. It is true. And so the idea of all my friends and family gathering, because also I just talking about me, have a very segregated group of friends. I'm not someone that has one massive group where everyone knows each other.
You're worried about everyone getting together and bitching about
I don't want them hearing what I've said about them to each other. You know what I mean? But it just wouldn't mean anything. Like it'd be like you and my school friend.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I've seen you on YouTube, and you'll be like, I don't care.
Yeah.
So it's a weird one.
You?
And you are okay. So it's a weird one, isn't it? But I do think talking about death is something we should all be more comfortable with. And I think it's something that it is really awkward for people. And I can totally understand why, because it is a scary thought to think, one day we will die. But I also think it's a really good way of looking at life to know that without letting it define your life, but letting it kind of guide you in the sense that, I'm going to do the things I want to do, live the life I want to live while I have it.
And I think that's the point that leads me to being pro-assisted dying, because I think you should have agency over your body.
I do too. I think also we talk a lot about dignity in life. I think there's dignity in death as well. And I think we have a lot of control over how we live day to day and, how we eat and the things we do to maintain our body and whatnot. But there are certain things we just can't control, which are things like chronic illnesses, cancer, and certain like awful, awful things that there's no cure to that actually could lead you to live in severe pain and a horrible life for about 10 to 20 years, let's say. And I do think if that were me, I would like the choice to say, actually, this isn't how I want to live my life. Because I know it's not how I'd want to live my life,
There was a very haunting quote, actually, I read from a GP. So the BBC did this study. It sent out questionnaires to 5,000 GPs. 1,000 GPs came back. 500 against assisted dying, 400 pro. It was really split. And one of the pro-assisted dying, this GP said, they were keeping bodies alive. They were keeping them out. She uses the word decrepitude. You were keeping bodies in decrepitude when they shouldn't. People who shouldn't be alive were being kept alive by modern medicine. And that actually, in their opinion, was immoral. I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
Because it's true, isn't it? When you've been in sort of end-of-life care, you get to a point where if a loved one is very unwell and you get to the hospice stage, you're watching your loved one receive pain medication. Once you get put on the morphine, that's, we're sort of going, okay, time out here. But that's almost a dignified way to go, right? If you're being hooked up to something and you are being kept alive, is that a final few months I'd want? Probably not.
Well, it's that boundary between life and living. And, you can be alive. It doesn't mean you're living. And I think that that's an example of that where, you could be on endless pain medication where you can barely even open your eyes and even know who's around you. And yes, technically you're alive and your life expectancy is increasing. But actually, you're not living you can't even leave the hospital room. I was about to say hotel room. You can't even leave Jesus Christ. You can't even leave the hospital room. Which is not funny, everyone. But you do. I will say, actually, I just said it's not funny. I do think you need to have some humor in these conversations because it does alleviate the pressure of what you're talking about because it is a very bleak topic. And I think what that GP was getting at is very true because I just think, gosh, like if it was someone I really cared about, or if it was me, I get we all have our own answers. I don't think I would want to live like that.
No.
Because I don't think it is living. In my definition of how I live my life, I would not count spending months knowing that let's say I was told, you've got 6 months to live. These 6 months are going to be you in the hospital bed, on severe pain medication to try and alleviate whatever we can. That is really, to me, not the standard of living I want for myself. No. And actually, I think if this option were available in the right way, which is a really crucial part in the right way, because there's obviously a lot of different ways assisted dying can exist. In that scenario, I probably would take it.
I want to bring something up and I shan't.
Well, you're going to now because you've done it, so.
Did you read about the 3D printer, the assisted dying machine?
I didn't.
It was horrific.
I bet this sounds bad.
It was horrific. Maybe I should tell you about it afterwards.
Oh, is it not something? Okay.
I feel like I read about it on the BBC, though, so I'm sure it is.
Do we want the too long didn't read version? Or no?
Okay, TLDR, someone did a 3D printed version of an assisted dying machine. Essentially, you receive, is it nitrogen? I think that you get pumped.
I think so.
And then it sort of knocks you out. And then
what it does.
Anyway, it didn't work. Didn't work. And then the person who was in there got found with like strangulation marks all over them. I was like, oh my God, that is not what. Anyway, this is why we need to legislate.
Yes.
Because those sort of things shouldn't be happening.
No.
Okay. Let's talk through the bill a little bit. Let me do a little bit of parliamentary procedure.
Yep.
So this is a private member's bill. It was brought to the House by Kim Leadbeater. So at the beginning of each parliament, you basically put in for a raffle. Then a number of MPs are selected. And then that MP who is chosen gets to decide what their private member's bill is going to be. Kim Leadbeater had a lot of pressure about what it should be, what it should look like. She wanted it to be about assisted dying. She sort of ploughed ahead with it. Now, the reason that this is sort of travelled through Parliament, private members' bills typically get knocked back quite early stages. They don't really normally make their way through the House particularly far unless there is a government inclination towards it. If the government is sort of on side with it, then it will move forward. And Keir Starmer has made his views clear about assisted dying before. He's also got a friendship with Kim Leadbeater because, of course, her sister was Jo Cox, who was the MP that was murdered. They have a link. Anyway, they have a friendship. This is now travelling through the House. It's now at committee stage. It's going to be back in Parliament tomorrow. This is where it gets tricky. They've put a number of safeguards in this bill. Arguably, they've put too many safeguards in this bill to sort of appease many MPs who aren't comfortable with assisted dying. Now, the Royal College of Psychiatrists were sort of integral to one of these safeguards. Many MPs were calling for, before you're allowed to accept assisted dying or before you're allowed to ask for assisted dying, you'd have to meet with these two psychiatrists who would determine whether you were fit and mental, in a fit and mental state. Your state was mental.
Able to make the decision for yourself.
Thank you.
That's kind of what you're getting. Yeah.
Thank you. They've now pulled out their support. So that's a bit of a hurdle. So now we're not sure it's going to make to the next stage. But this legislation, it is rather limited. It's only if you have a diagnosis of 6 months to live. Yeah. Which, by the way, is a very difficult thing. It's rather arbitrary. It's difficult to determine that.
Very specific as well. And often medicine and diagnoses, as we know, are not as... It will be, you might have 6 months. You could have 6 years. There's no way of actually knowing a lot of the time. It's just knowing that they often just know you're at the end. But that can take so many different forms. So anyway, sorry, continue about that.
No, I'm done now.
Oh, great.
So, so my criticism of the bill...
Yeah.
There's two... So MPs who are against it think that there aren't enough safeguards. MPs who are for it think there are too many safeguards because there's an argument that 6 months to live, could you push through? Whereas if you're in chronic pain and you've been in chronic pain for 10 years and you're going to be in chronic pain for another 10, 15 years, should that legislation include you? Well,
okay, so firstly, agreed on that. Secondly, I think my general view on it is it's a very difficult thing to legislate. It really is, because I think death and illness are such case-by-case things as individuals that we all go through, because one person who has stage 4 cancer is not going to be the same as another person that has stage 4 cancer. Do you know what I mean? It's so different. And to then say that by default, both would get access to this in theory. Actually, to be fair, cancer is a very unique example because it's not necessarily a chronic thing, but you know what I mean? It's something that I personally believe needs to be done on a case-by-case basis, but in terms of legislating that is a very difficult thing to do, because you do need to have these blanket terms of, in this case, 6 months, but actually, like you were just getting at, is it the person that's maybe got 6 months left to live that could potentially pull through in theory, the one that should get access to this? Or is it the one that's being told, hey, you've got potentially 20, 30 years of life left in you, a normal lifespan. However, in those 30 years, you're going to be in severe pain every single day, maybe barely even able to get out of the bed, not able to spend time with the people you want to be with, not even able to work potentially. to me, that's more the candidate that this bill should be for. What is that a crazy thing to say?
This is where it gets tricky. Labour have they're going to vote on it early June, taking away PIP payments, right? We've still got a real issue in this country with statutory sick pay. Yeah. After the first couple of weeks, you revert to £99 a week. I actually think it's gone up to £107 now, but I'm sure someone will correct me in the comments. But anyway, it's not enough money, right?
Yeah, great quid.
You have a situation where if someone is chronically ill or disabled, they might decide, I am a burden. I cannot afford to live. My family cannot afford my care.
Yeah.
Should I go down this route? Which is possibly why no disabled charity or group has backed the bill.
And fair enough on that front, because I can get why that's obviously a major concern. And I'll be honest, I don't have the answer to how we alleviate that. But
well, I think it's about they're putting sort of the cart before the horse here, right? Yeah. Because they're solving the assisted dying issue before they solve the end of life care issue.
Yeah.
So instead of sort of looking at hospices and thinking, we've got a huge issue. This week, we've been talking about carers and how we're not going to allow carers to come to the country anymore. When we've got, just last year, House of Commons Library showed that there was 131,000 vacancies for carers. If you are, when you're...
That is crazy, by the way. Sorry, that is an insane number. 131,000.
But this is so cart before the horse then, right? Because what you're saying is instead of fixing the back end, instead of actually fixing a route for people to die, possibly with dignity, possibly in comfort, with help, we're going to actually... Do you want to just die? That is how it could be read.
That is how it could be read. You're completely right. And I think it's the age-old thing in this country of let's just jump ahead instead of addressing the real issue at hand. Not that the real issue in this case is that, but because assisted dying is a separate thing. But the case you've just described, in theory, should never be possible to happen because there should be no one in this country, in theory, that feels that way. However, we know the reality is not that. And that's unfortunately not going to change. It seems anytime soon under this government, let's be really honest here. Because if you're saying you want to end, migration and people who are actually coming here to do these jobs, which, by the way, most British people don't want to do. Let's just be really honest here. These are jobs that often are taken by people from abroad who move here.
You sound like, what's her name?
Oh, who?
Osborne. What's her name? Kelly Osborne.
I thought you were about to say Sharon Osborne. I was like, oh, Kelly Osborne. Oh, you're talking about the toilet video on The View.
Who is going to clean your toilet?
I do not sound like that. I would never say something.
You did.
Well, I didn't. So we're going to move on from Ava's evil.
But that is the best clip I've ever seen.
It is the best clip I've ever seen. I quote, oh, that's not often. I actually quoted it yesterday. No, but the point she was trying to... I am not talking about Kelly Osborne, and now let me try and make her point without saying it.
Yeah. How wild was that, though? Sorry, can we just dissect? She says that. Everyone just falls apart. Oh, that's not.
If you're listening at home, please search Kelly Osborne, The View. I believe it was The View. Am I going crazy? It will come up straight away. You need to watch it. Don't just listen to it. But listening it, I would have both experiences. Yeah. I would listen and then watch. But
she essentially...
Who's going to clean your toilet, Mr. Trump?
They're talking about Latinas, and they're talking about really whether they're talking about Trump.
I just
they're talking about Trump cracking down on immigration and being abjectly racist, and she's like, who's going to clean the toilets? What?
But she really says it like, I really ate that. Like, she says it like, I just made a point. You're going to be gagged for that. Yeah. And all the ladies like, oh, no. Oh, that's not. And then she goes, no, but I mean. And they're all like, no.
No coming back, babe. There is no coming back. She was in, she was thrown out of public life.
Actually, that really did do something to that 5-second clip really did. Kelly, wherever you are, thank you for the clip.
I saw her once, actually. I saw her once having lunch. It was on Greek Street. I didn't realise it was her. I came out of the loo and it was this summer, and I was wearing a zip back dress, and I asked her if she could do it my dress. And she said no. And I realised who it was.
Oh.
I was like, fuck you.
I love celebrity interactions where you don't know who they are and then you realise afterwards. Those are my favourite category of thing.
Honestly, she was like, no, I don't think so. Then when she walked out, I was like, Kelly Osborne.
Because you just know she thought you were like some fan being like, oh, I want like Kelly Osborne to do up my dress. But really, you were like, I literally don't know who you are, Diva.
No. I was just looking for support in the girls' bathroom. Do you know what I mean?
Women supporting women. I think
she probably thought I was there to clean the toilet.
Oh, Jesus. Isn't it funny how we go from assisted dying to meeting Kelly Osborne on Greek Street in Soho? I don't even know where we were at. Do you remember?
Yeah, you were well, I don't know why. It came from who?
We're talking about the jobs, the vacancies, carers.
Who's going to clean your toilet, vacancies, carers? Yes. You were being Kelly Osborne. Go.
I'm going to now try and climb out of the hole of being Kelly Osborne. No, I just think that we are in a position in this country, as we know, where a lot of these jobs that are required to make sure that issues like the one you described don't happen. We're not in a position where that's the case right now, if that makes sense. I feel like I did not word that well, but hopefully you get it.
Because they're sort of spilling out lines, aren't they, about... Actually, I couldn't even believe it had a Labour MP. Oh, it was the Labour social media account was talking about cheap foreign labour undercutting British workers. I was like...
I just honestly am so bored of it. I'm bored because no one... Well, I'm sure there are still people who are reading that and believing it, but I think the majority of people now are very much just like, girl, please.
Well, it's the invisible hand of the market, right? And that is why a lot of people on the left call for state intervention, because actually a lot of these private companies are contracted by the NHS. If you wanted to put a directive in and you wanted to say actually carers should be paid X, then that would probably mean these companies wouldn't be able to import, as you say, quote unquote, cheap foreign labour. Do you know what I mean?
I do. And then when you circle that back to assisted dying, it just means people are in a position where basically this bill in theory is flawed from the jump, because no matter what it says, it's going to, in theory, pave the way for what you described, where there are people who maybe just feel like my life isn't worth living, and so I'm going to go down this route, when actually their life is still worth living. It's just that the government's not giving them what they need to have in order to be able to live.
I met a bloke down in Bournemouth, Eastborne. He was on statutory sick pay. He's been on it. He's got cancer. He's 62. He's got a life of 30 years ahead of him on statutory sick pay. He's worked all of his life. Mm-hmm. They're now in rented accommodation. They've had to sell the house. It is the most horrific story you've heard, honestly.
It's just, it's disgraceful. Like, it really is.
His wife's working down at Asda. She's not well either, but she's doing that.
She has to, because otherwise there's no way. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you just think to yourself, God, how I was about to swear, how did we get here? Like, literally, how do we get to a point where someone like that, who has worked, because in theory in this country, you work all your life, you've paid your dues, right? In theory.
Mm. Yeah, what now?
What now?
He was saying that he'd worked since he was 14. 14.
And now look
languishing.
At him. And now it's like, sorry, you're not good enough. Bye.
You're on £100 a week.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
But then this is where the bill...
Liberal Democrat MP, by the way. Liberal Democrat. And they're...
Oh, in his area, sorry, you mean, yeah.
And they're kind of pro-caring, but he couldn't get a reply out of him.
Really?
Yeah, we actually did a bit on camera. Maybe I'll slot it in or I'll put it out somewhere else. But we did it. We read out the correspondence between them, and he basically...
Wait, when was this? Is this recently?
Yeah, it was a couple of months ago. He was basically just like, he got like an out-of-office reply, essentially, that was like, sorry, we're really busy at the moment with casework, but we'll give it a go.
Well, this is casework, mate.
Honestly.
So jump on it. It is, on a separate detail point, it is mad how many MPs just ignore. I have to be really honest in my ignorance here. I only really learned about the full scale of this recently, because I am very fortunate in the sense that when I've needed my MP, they have been there, which has only been actually up once. And the MPs that I've worked with tend to have been fairly decent on this, from what I know. But I've heard stories from just like friends and stuff in London, and with things going on recently where people have been reaching out, especially around bad landlords, blah, 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 a separate point. It shakes me. I cannot fathom it. And in these cases, I'm like, what the actual hell?
Well, you have caseworkers. You have people who work in an office in your constituency dealing with this. And I'm like, babe, get off the media.
And they're there full time. These aren't people that are in Parliament. These are people who are actually there in your constituency. And this is what I think I didn't really grasp until maybe like a year ago, is how much resource an MP actually has to deliver these things. And I get it's probably not enough.
They
but
charge
still,
it all to the taxpayer.
This is it.
Do you know what I mean? You know, if your rent is being paid for an office down there and you're charging the salaries of your caseworkers, why the hell is why are you sending like out of office replies to people? Do you know what I mean?
It's disgraceful. It's someone like that going through that, but they actually physically need an MP. And do you know what's crazy? If you as a journalist reached out and still didn't get a reply, that says it all. Because
you didn't reach out.
Oh, you didn't reach out.
Okay, so let's just put that on pause.
Oh, okay.
Maybe I'll do that today.
Fine.
I will do that.
But often what I will add to that, regardless of whether you did or didn't reach out, is often it does take a journalist or someone from the media to reach out to get action to start rolling.
And isn't that bad?
And isn't that awful? And we've spoken about this before off camera, but it's such a privileged position to be in when you're in the media in some ways, because you can kind of be this like anonymous, obscure figure at first. So say you're dealing with like the bad landlord example is the one I've experienced. And then suddenly they realise you're from the media and you get exactly what it is you're asking for. Anyway, I digress. But yeah, I think the point you were making regarding assisted dying is the thing that we need to avoid. But I will be honest, I don't know how this bill can do that, because unfortunately the issues that you were describing are bigger than the bill. And so unless they're fixed, there isn't a way you can legislate really, I don't think. Oh, but don't worry, there can't be a clause that says, well, if someone just feels they're not worth living, we have to make sure they can't get access to assisted dying, because that person could have then an illness or something that technically means they qualify for it. Maybe.
Yeah.
Not with the 6-month guard in place, I guess, usually, but still.
But see, the 6-month guard to me just makes it, this is what I'm pro assisted dying, I'm anti this bill.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I do.
Because it when a lot of people have been saying it's been rushed through, it's more substantive than the last bill that was presented 9 years ago into Parliament. However, it still feels rather punitive, because the people, all right, where we work, there is a multiple sclerosis centre next door, isn't there? Do you see them going in and out?
Do you know what? I've never noticed that. I'm going to be so honest with you. But I'm very much in my, you know me, when I'm walking down the road, I'm focused on what's in front of me and nothing else.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
I will be very honest.
Well,
with
okay, well, I'm not. I'm a woman of the world.
Women are the people.
These people are in pain.
Jesus.
These people are in pain. Do you know what a blessing it is that we're not in pain every single day?
Oh, I do. Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, that is. Do you ever wake up? Do you ever get a 2-day migraine and you think to myself, I can't cope?
No, but do you know what,
Some
Ava?
of these people are living with like slip discs for 30 years.
I have to be so honest with you. What you just said there is a point I think a lot of people have never thought about before, is do you really understand what it's like to live in pain? Because we don't. No. Thank God. I don't believe in God. Thank whoever, whatever there is. Hallelujah. But the idea that there are people having to live their life like that is something that I think a lot of people, writing these bills, don't understand. A lot of people who maybe are just like, oh, I think this and I think about assisted dying, don't actually fathom what it's like to wake up in pain, to go to bed in pain, to not even be able to sleep probably most nights because you're in pain. I can't even fathom that. Even when I've got the flu, I'm miserable.
Yeah.
I mean, when I had that cough for the last 2 weeks, I was literally like depressed. I was like, this is awful.
Yeah.
And so I just think.
Well, my sister had chronic fatigue growing up, which is a really weird, it's debilitating and it's incurable, it's untreatable. And it's also like, it's extreme. You don't even get a proper diagnosis for it, right? Because it's like, it's like you're just tired. Because it's not quite ME.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And she was sleeping 22 hours a day.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, it was insane.
Oh,
and you could not get her up. You have to get her up to feed, shower, back to bed. People get this, by the way, in later life. It's really evil. But and that is debilitating because you're tired all the time. And I'm not saying that's a reason someone would want to have assisted dying.
No, it's a separate point, but I get it.
But I'm talking about just like a chronic illness that takes over your life like that.
Well, it's just even things in that case, like if you want to go to the shop and buy something.
Oh, you can't.
You can't. And this is what I think people who maybe just unequivocally oppose assisted dying and don't understand, they don't understand that this isn't something that if you have one of these illnesses affects, oh, I need to go to bed early tonight, I'm a bit tired. No, it's like I physically can't leave the house. I can't see anyone. I can't cook. I can't wash my hair. These are not little things we're talking about. Genuinely, imagine. I physically can't imagine. Like, I'm just going to, like my day yesterday, went to the gym in the morning. Can't do that if you've got chronic illness, potentially. Came into work, walked to work. Can't do that, potentially. These little tiny things that we take for granted every single day.
Went for a drink after work.
Can't do it.
Because it's also, so this is what a GP was, I was listening to another GP who was talking about this the other day. She was talking about when someone gets like diagnosed with say stage 4 cancer, right? You've got the physical elements, but because you've had so much of your life taken away, you get this added, you get a depressive state, right? And she's like, you can treat the depressive state, but she said the difficulty with treating that at the moment is that the mental health services are so backed up, you end up putting someone on a pill. Yeah. Not good. When actually, what these people miss is being able to go out and about.
Yeah, and I get that.
If I don't know, mentally, it is very good for me to come into work, see people I like.
Yeah.
and then
Yeah. Sorry, I just made a face at Ava.
go for a quick drink after work.
Yeah. 100%.
I feel good.
100%.
If all of that is taken away from me
Yeah.
and I'm stuck in my home as a prison, see, now I'm turning off it.
Well, I'll use an example from my own life. So my nan in 2018 was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and we were basically told she's got around 6 months, maybe.
Should she be eligible?
Technically, yes. She ended up living for 2.5 more years.
Wow.
Sorry, she was diagnosed 2016. She died in 2018. I got that wrong. God, that's crazy. That's been almost 10
That
years.
was so Sean of you, by the way, to just correct the dates.
It's so what?
So Sean of you.
I'm very date oriented as well, though. You know this. And so my point is, though, at the time, I'll be very honest. If she had said when she got that diagnosis, I want to do assisted dying, there is no way that any of us would have supported that.
Sure.
I can tell you that
Sure.
up front. I would love to sit here and pretend.
Was she in pain?
Not at first, very quickly, yes, very extreme, in and out of hospital, endless. I mean, I lost count of the amount of surgery she had, because it was she had bowel cancer, which is one of the worst ones you can get.
Yeah, no.
She had tumors the size of like actual balls in her, like awful, oh god, like it was a really awful 2 years. And my point just is, as bad as it sounds, even though I've just said I'm pro it, when I was in that scenario watching a loved one go through it, do you know what? I'm so just drop your own.
Yeah.
Even when I was watching someone go through it that I loved, I was still like, do you know what? I would still rather have you here alive for as long as we physically can get. And I know that's selfish, but equally, that said, Ava, it wouldn't be my decision to make.
No, for sure.
And this is the other flip side of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't like the argument that families would pressure someone into dying.
No.
I think that you can't really legislate for that, because
You can't.
listen, if you've got evil family who are trying to get their hands on the money, okay, listen, they're going to get their hands on the money.
Yeah.
They're not, you can't legislate for those sort of people.
You can't, no.
Maybe you can do like
there's screenings and things you could add in, but you can't find everything.
Dying, maybe you need a pause on the will.
Yeah, that's actually not a bad shout. See how much the family then support it.
Because can't you do that? Can't the person actually just be like, okay, in their will, they can't have this for like 20 years?
Yeah. I think you can definitely do time, I believe. I mean, I don't know that much about them, but I'm pretty sure you can do like a delayed.
I don't think we've ever had a will in our family that's been worth fighting over, to be honest.
No, none of us have either. Yeah, no, literally. And it always fascinates me actually when I hear from people who have, because it is such a different experience. Like I'll hear from sort of friends and stuff who will be like, oh yeah, my family died and then I like bought a house outright with the money. And I'll be like, oh, fair enough. I remember when my nan died, that was just it.
Yeah.
And I'm not mad at that. That's how, it's just how it goes.
We actually had to go clean out the house.
Yeah.
No one wanted that in the will.
No, do you know what I mean?
What do you mean?
Honestly, no one wanted to take that responsibility. But it's such a unique topic, because as I say, that's probably the closest example I've got of someone who would have gone through that and potentially seen this bill as actually, I will tell you, my nan would never have taken it, because she was very much like, that woman believed she was beating stage 4 cancer from day one. And so that's a good thing, though.
Friends, see, this is why the 6-month thing seems so arbitrary to me, because one of my mum's friends, she was told basically like, it's in your bones, don't bother.
Okay.
And she's in remission.
Wow. Okay.
Truly. The 6-month thing is arbitrary.
Yeah.
Because someone might go in 1 month, they might go in 6 years.
Gosh, listen, I think I need more time to think about this before I actually physically declare, because I am pro it in theory.
I've declared, so you've left me out here now.
No. I am pro it. I am pro it, but there's so many layers to it.
Yeah.
I am pro it because, listen, I believe in autonomy over your body.
That's it.
That's fundamentally what it boils down to for me. And from there, we can just debate everything else, and we can talk about that all day long. I do believe fundamentally we should all have the right to what happens to our body, period. That goes without saying. However, like you've been saying and we've agreed on, is there are certain things in this bill, I agree with you, I think is very flawed. I think it doesn't quite grasp the full breadth of this issue that we have at hand in front of us. I think it doesn't offer enough protections to the certain cases that could arise from it, such as people just deciding it's time that I'm a burden on society and I'm just going to go. Yeah. And that feeling is something that thankfully we can't relate to. And when you are watching someone in like a stage 4 cancer and stuff, I will admit, like, it does feel a burden at times. And it's not that you don't love the person, but it's a horrible thing to go through for everybody.
Yeah.
And that's not to say you're waiting for them to die in any way.
No.
But it is still a horrible, someone that you love isn't the only person going through cancer. They're
Conor
the only
controversially says he does not like seeing his loved ones die of cancer.
Yeah.
Very
Shocking.
controversial take.
Shocking. And so it's And like the case you just described, I'll tell you something, Ava. As much as my nan, in hindsight, was delusional to believe she could survive, fair fucking play. And we all believed it too at the time. And I remember being like, me.
She had it 2 years on, didn't she?
Exactly. Added on from 6 months or so.
Yeah.
And in those years, she wasn't always, she was still able to do certain things. She wasn't working anymore, which she really missed. And like you would describe, actually did make her quite depressed. But, these are things you can treat, hopefully. And this is where this bill still has a lot of work to go if assisted dying is to become the law of the land, I would say.
Well, I think we go again, in a couple of weeks' time when we see where the bill is.
Yeah. We go again. That's what we always do.
If you've enjoyed Conor being on the podcast, put it in a comment. If you haven't, email me.
Yeah. Send me an Instagram DM with your personalised hate so I can recite it to him in the office.
If he's not here next week, it's because I've had more than 4 emails.
Oh, Lord. That's easy to do. I've got like 4 enemies out there waiting in the wings.
Have you? And they'd listen to you on here.
Listen, people who... Listen, I've been a lot of things. I've been hated. I've been unfriended.
Really?
I've been unadded, but I've never been forgotten.
Are you doing that?
It's the thing I sent you. I sent Ava a meme this morning.
You sent me a meme this morning at 7 a.m. and I was like,
it was literally the first thing I did when I woke up.
Yeah, I was like, what's this?
It's like a picture of Charlie XCX and it has her being like, I've been unadded, I've been unfriended, I've been blocked, I've been dumped, but I've never been forgotten.
This guy, I liked it the second time that you said it. Should we? Okay. I'll see you on the subreddit and maybe in my emails. Bye.
Bye.